Hi, you're listening to Tarot Talk. My name's Renee and I'm a professional member of the Tarot Guild of Australia and I will be your host. This is a monthly instalment that we'll be featuring on our website tarotguild.org.au, and this is a chance for us to interview all of our professional members, interest members and tarot enthusiasts from around the world. We really hope you enjoy the show, so sit back, relax, get yourself a cuppa or a glass of wine, and we hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to the very first episode of Tarot Talk podcast. My name's Renee, and today's special guest is Karen Seinor. Karen is an official member of the Tarot Guild of Australia. She's multi-talented, hugely experienced in the world of tarot, aromatherapy, counselling. She's also a published author, many other talents. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Karen to the show. Karen, welcome.
Thank you, Renee. I'm so pleased to be here chatting with you. I'm looking forward to it. I think we'll have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it's going to be wonderful. This is our very first episode, so bear with us, guys, if we're not quite polished just yet, but we will get there. And look, this is a chance for us to get to know all the members of the Tarot Guild. So if you enjoy this program by the end of it, reach out to us. We'd love to have you part of the show. If you'd like to be interviewed, please just get in touch with our committee and the website tarotguild.org, and you can participate. So this is not just for celebrities or anyone fancy. We welcome you all. So how are you going, Karen? How's the weather been in New South Wales? You're based up there?
I am. I'm on the border of Vic and New South Wales, and we have had buckets of rain, absolutely buckets. I think we had 60 mil in 24 hours or something. Mad.
It has been crazy, but it's always nice and refreshing, isn't it? It's good that the farmers get their water and the land continues to grow the spring season.
Yes, I think the farmers might have had a little bit too much, but I know in my garden things are looking very sprightly, and I was lucky enough to get it all mowed before the rain came in. So I'm pretty happy.
Oh, there's nothing worse, is it, having a soggy lawn? Okay, so Karen, you have achieved so many things, and I am blessed to be also part of the committee as of this year, 2021. So I'm new to the team, but you've been around for a while, and I'd just love this interview to share some of your secrets, some of your passions, things that you've achieved, and for people who are interested in tarot, what it can bring and how it can enrich their lives. So I guess I want to just sort of kick off and ask you a fairly basic question, and that is kind of, what's your first memory of tarot and what made you walk the path of the esoteric?
Oh, now that's a great question, Renee. My very first memory of the tarot is not warm and fuzzy, actually. So one of the things I had to do when I really was drawn to it was I had to deal with that. So cutting to the chase, as a little girl, I remember, probably would have been 6 or 7, I remember my mum had a lovely friend whose name was Maureen, if you can believe that. I remember that. And she was a really good tarot reader. Now, she used to read the cards with the normal playing cards, and I recall her doing that at our kitchen table. And my mother's face dropped, and she looked absolutely petrified. And evidently what Maureen told her was that either her brother or her father were going to die. So my mum was freaked out by that, and I remember that feeling of fear. So it's a terrible thing to say actually on a Tarot Talk podcast, but it's really stuck with me. And so I knew that it was pretty powerful as I got older because of my mum's reaction. And of course, what actually happened was that both her father and her brother passed.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty intense. And the biggest thing, I guess, apart from that, was that Maureen actually went to a psychiatric ward about a week after she did that reading for my mum. So in my memory, this is what stuck in my head, was if you play with those cards, bad things happen and you will get locked up. That's what my little brain said. So years later, when I was really drawn to psychic things and I was going to healing circles and things like that, I was actually told by a lady that I really respected. She said, Karen, you've got so much psychic energy around you. She did this drawing and there was all this purple. And she said to me, you must go and buy some tarot cards. And I think I had the same look on my face that my mother did when she had the reading from Maureen. Horror, shock. But she said to me, no, they're not bad. So off I went. I went off to the Crystal Heart shop in Carlton, and I bought this tarot deck called the Servants of Light. And I'm standing in this shop going, what the hell am I doing? But I picked it because Servants of Light, it can't be evil, right? And so I took those cards home and I played with them a little bit and then I parked them. But I did start getting them out every now and then and started to play. And then, of course, later on, I studied esoteric healing. And one of the things that happened in a session was that I was given to begin working with the tarot. Yeah, so that's a long answer to a short question, probably.
No, it's fantastic. Look, I think it's important to, keep things real and, because everybody does have real lives and real experiences, and that's sort of part of getting to know people who are part of, the guild and the people that we love to spend time with and learn from. And those things are really important because there are some, it's good to demystify things is what I'm trying to say. And when you can demystify it, it makes tarot more accessible. People don't fear the tarot. But look, it always has been a little quirky in terms of what can happen in a tarot reading. And it actually leads me into a couple of other questions, which is great that you've answered it in the way that you did. How much value do you place on our psychic ability as a reader?
That is a very good question. And a little bit of a loaded question, I think, Renee, because there's really there's three styles of reading from my perspective. There's people who work totally intuitively and simply use the cards as a prop.
Yep.
There's people who learn the meanings of the cards and they're working very much in the left brain. And then there's those people who combine the two. And my sense is that it's the combination of the two that really creates the best readers. To only work intuitively, we are potentially at risk. And it's like my mum's friend Maureen. There was stuff going on for her, and there's no doubt that she got very clear information about certain events, but the ability to use that information in a way that's appropriate, it doesn't necessarily fit with one psychic ability. Just because you're a psychic doesn't mean that you're operating in the right or from the right plane, shall we say.
Correct.
So I think intuition is good. I think psychic ability is really valuable, but you don't have to have those things to read the tarot.
Yeah, correct. Because when people read the tarot, they often think that they're reading the fundamental messages that embody the cards, like you said, the left side, yet tend not to talk about the mystical aspect of what can occur in a reading. Can you share with us any moments that you may have experienced which can't be explained to the naked eye without sort of being unethical, obviously, because there are ethics involved? Have you had a situation where you may have imparted knowledge like Maureen did at some point? You could see something. Where do you withdraw, and where do you share? Where's that line that you sort of create for yourself and your clients?
Yeah, that's a good one too. Oh, you're great with the questions. I love it.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. It's good. I mean, we've got to ask the gnarly questions because when we're working with the tarot, we're working with real people, real situations. It's not black and white. And we've got to come back to our own ethics, our own values, I think. To answer the question, what's popped into my mind is a very well, sadly, it's a little bit funny and a little bit twisted as well. That's something about my sense of humour, perhaps. I was doing a reading. I lived in Hawaii for a while, and I lived in, on Oahu. And it was quite a long time ago now, and I had these two sisters wanted to come and have a reading. And they wanted to come together. And I'd never really liked to do that, but I was pretty new there. I was really eager to get my name out and get known. So I agreed. I crossed my own boundary for a start. Never good. So I had these two women there at the kitchen table. And what came up when I did the reading for the first sister was, oh my God, your husband is having an affair. And it was actually, he was having the affair with the sister that was right there. Holy crap. What do you do with that? So
awkward.
Extremely awkward. So, and of course, there's no way, I didn't want a bloodbath in my kitchen.
Oh, my Lord. Oh, my Lord. See, this is why I ask the gnarly questions. It can happen.
Exactly. It totally happened. So I was stuck because I kind of pride myself on speaking truth, but with heart. And I am a bit of a hard hitter. People expect that from me. That's really why people come back and have readings from me, because I don't really pull punches, but, with love. So here I was, and I actually needed to tell her that there was something going on with the relationship. But I just wasn't prepared to tell her that it was her sister. There's no way I could do that. So I evaded, I just didn't share that particular piece of information, but I did say to her, you need to look at the relationship, look at what's happening around you. And, I gave her that sort of information, which was enough to get her started. And the sister was a little bit trepidatious when she had her reading, but I didn't mention it. I worried about it afterwards, to be honest, had I done the right thing, but I feel like I did.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's sometimes a bit of tough love, iron fist with a velvet glove, kind of firm but fair kind of information, because people come to you for truth and they come to you for clarity. And if you have that level of intuition and you do receive messages and you can read things that are actually happening and that they're happening, it's balls to bones sometimes. You just know it in your bones. It's there. That's where the ethical, path comes into it, because we are responsible for people's lives at times, and you can't send them down a path which is fake or just for fun, or you're dealing with real issues. And so that's a really good example of certain situations as readers we do come across. So thank you for sharing that.
That's quite all right. I've just thought of another one as you were talking, Renee. We think we actually hold a position of enormous power for a lot of people. They put us into a place where, they put us on a pedestal, as though we are absolute truth seers and knowers, which in many cases we are, but everybody has their own, choice is always relevant. It's not just because a tarot. Yeah, exactly. But we sometimes think we're going to go off and do a fun thing. Like I actually have done a couple of gigs, and you'll love this, in a gypsy tent at the Wodonga City Council. They actually employed me to go and do tarot readings. They made this gorgeous silken tent. I actually dressed up and I did the whole gig, the big earrings, and it was really fun. And I thought, I'm going to go off and have lovely fun and do these fun readings. Holy moly. Wow. It was some of the toughest, gruntiest questions. I think the third 15-minute reading I did, somebody came in and their child had a brain tumour.
Yeah.
And I'm in this glorious tent, dressed up, ready to have fun and do lighthearted readings.
Yeah.
Wow. It just hits you from the least, it's like, oh, okay, this is serious. And boom, you've got to be right there. Yeah. Anyway, no more cheeky stories because we don't want to frighten any of the potential.
No, that's okay. Well, I also, this interview is also about, your history and your experiences. But I had a similar experience with one of the first party sort of situations I did. And, people hear the word party and they think it's all going to be fun. And usually it is. But again, we just, circle back to the fact that people have lives and, they have real issues and sometimes they're not positive. And especially, the Three of Swords will come down or other cards will just go bang, bang, one after the other. And you just think, this is crazy. But, it's part of being a professional. You leave the client always feeling uplifted with, a great course of action, possible, positivity. And I think that's sort of where we have to draw our own inner strength from to allow the other person to feel like they're going to be okay and things are what they are. You can't beat around the bush, but at the same time, give them that sense of support and, and counsel. But as a counsellor yourself, do you have any tips for budding readers or even experienced readers on taking on a counselling course? And, you've interwoven that sort of skill set with the tarot, obviously, over many years. What advice do you have for people out there who's thinking about tarot and maybe sort of stepping into the world of counselling or taking a basic course? Do you think it's a good thing?
I think it's a fantastic thing. I really do. It helps you so much with your readings. In fact, I was a reader for a very long time before I studied counselling. And I think actually reading the tarot helps me to work in that counselling role. But, yeah, definitely for people as readers, it just helps you with your questions. It helps you to know the kind of questions, I guess we don't really ask questions in the tarot, but the way you use your language, how you word things, how you feed back to people in a way that moves them forward positively in a strong way so that they leave feeling empowered. Yeah, it's great for that.
Yeah. I think it's great because, you've got so many different interests and things that you do. You are a published author as well. I just want to talk about a couple of books you've written. You've got Tarot Foundations for the Journey. That was a while ago. I think that came out 2015. It's according to the internet.
Yes, okay, gee, I thought I'd actually pulled that one down.
You can still get it
very
as
good.
an ebook.
Okay.
It's still out there as an ebook.
Okay.
And it says, a thorough introduction to the tarot with meanings for all 78 cards, foundational tarot spreads, how to care for your cards, picking the right deck, the court cards, tarot healing, and more. Do you want to talk about tarot as a healing? What did you mean by that in your book?
Oh, yes. I studied as an esoteric healer before I actually went off and did my studies with Anne Schotter because she was my first tarot teacher. So I actually see the tarot as a healing modality, definitely in its own right. There's so many layers in the cards. When you look at them, the story behind the colour, the esoteric symbols, when you bring, and especially if you're using cards that have been created with a really genuine healing intent, that is infused into those items, shall we say. So when we do healing work, one of the key things that is happening is the combination of the healer's auric space, their vibrational frequency, and the person receiving the healing. And if you think about it practically, whether you are doing a reading in person or even online with a client, you're sitting opposite that person. And if you imagine yourself sitting on the other side of the tarot table, your chakra systems, the main chakras are actually in line. And the reader or the healer is actually accessing universal life force energy. They're bringing that in and they're making it available to the client, additional energy, so that they can actually heal themselves. It's like putting fuel into a car.
Yeah.
And the person receiving the reading or the healing, whichever the case may be, and I don't think they're very different, always has the ability to heal themselves. We know that. In truth, in a reading, I genuinely believe that I cannot tell anybody something they don't already intrinsically know. They have all the knowledge. In a reading, what's happening is we put those cards out and the client is seeing them, the colour is impacting on them, the esoteric symbols are working on their psyche, on their energy field. And they're getting the additional energy of this combination.
Yeah.
There's also the lineage of all of the tarot teachers and practitioners that have gone before the reader. So it's in a way, you think about a yogic tradition. They talk about my teacher and the energy of my teacher. So you're tapping into a very long line. I think there's so many things that happen in a reading that makes it a healing experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It is so multifaceted and so subconscious and so, intrinsic. And, like you said, you would never sort of tell somebody something that you intrinsically knew that they didn't already know themselves. And, tarot is a way to bring those issues or those feelings or that knowledge to the surface. It's sort of an opportunity to look at those cards, like you said, acknowledging the colours, acknowledging symbols, all of those things become activated between the reader and the client, or the reader and the person who's sitting with you. And so I totally understand that explanation. It's such a broad question and it's not answered simply, but it does. I think that's what the mysticism of tarot is, why I love it, or I personally love it so much, and people who do love tarot just can never get enough, is because it never ends. It's continual. It's almost infinite in terms of what it can bring to enrich our lives every single day. No 2 days are ever the same.
Exactly. And it is infinite. When we look at the archetypes, so when we look at, the chariot, for example, the warrior archetype, and most people who study the tarot, veer off and look at Jung's archetypes. It's such a perfect, lineup. When or even the Empress is a nice, easy one for us to talk about. When we look at the Empress archetype, the mother, the great mother, any person can think about the mother and they get an image, they have an experience, and they can align with that. And I always imagine in my mind that there's this great big beautiful cloud up there in the universe, and this idea of the mother is up there. And every single one of us, when we tune into the archetype of the great mother, the Empress card, we're drawing from that. So there's this incredible pool of knowledge and information, skills, abilities that we access. And this is another way that the tarot is healing, because we can access resources and skills that we don't necessarily have ourselves in this moment in time, and we can use them by tapping into the tarot archetype to help us move through an obstacle. Yeah, it's fabulous. We can elicit that from the card.
Yeah. I have been wanting to learn more and more about astrology over the last year or two in particular. I mean, my interest in tarot has been since a very early age. My mother had a deck, and that's another story for another time. But since then, even before I actually understood how to read the tarot cards, I understood sun signs like the Bible. It was just like every time I would meet someone, I would ask them what their sun sign was or when was your birthday,
Yeah.
And that would be my sort of esoteric religion, for want of a better word, and how I have navigated myself through life with relationships, with people at work, with, family members or whoever, crosses your path. It's always a nice thing to fall back on and sort of think, okay, I know where this person's coming from. I can understand their point of view. And of course, when you get to learn and study the tarot, those things are interwoven. Those cards have symbology based on the planets and Venus and all of those other things. How much emphasis do you put on with astrology and your knowledge of astrology, for example, and where you incorporate that? Do you incorporate that into your readings?
No, it's not. It's not an area that I've really gone into. But you know who is really very good at that is one of the ladies on the committee, Molly Talbot. I actually get her newsletter and I love it. It's really cool. I tend to go more with the vegetable kingdom, believe it or not. So my gig with the tarot is I look at the plants that align with it. That's always been a bit of a thing for me.
Oh, so, that was one of my first decks, actually. Have you got the herbal tarot?
I used to. I don't have it now, but yeah.
That's a good one. It's very interesting. I think the High Priestess is aligned with the peony flower and the ginger for the Hierophant or something. It's really interesting with the plant world. But I also think that I just wanted to ask you that because as a reader myself, I tend to weave that into my readings also, because the archetypes of those particular, the major arcana in particular, are aligned with certain planets and how that actually resonates in which time of year you're actually doing the reading as well. But look, we don't have to dive into that because it is super complex and can be confusing to new people to the world of tarot. But it definitely is something. I think we recently had a presentation as part of the guild with Sarah Gilbert, and she introduced astrology and weaves that into tarot, which I found was really interesting.
Look, it's a great thing. So one of the things, if people are good at that, if they have a base of knowledge around astrology, the zodiac, then it's wonderful to mix that in. I think that's the beauty of it. The tarot is so big and it's so broad in one sense that you can interweave these other tools into it, and it can actually help the client. One of the things I do is I do the life cards for clients, and I find that's really good for my students as well. So, I mean, for each of the sun signs, there's a tarot card. So that's a great thing to know because it really wows clients, because most people do know what their star sign is.
That's right. And I often sometimes use it as an introduction. You can ask them, when's your birthday? And, this is your card. You've appeared in your own reading. If the Lover's card pops up and they're a Gemini, you can sort of say, oh, look, you're at the center of your reading. This is, it's going to be quite, revolving around you yourself. It's very much egocentric, for want of a better, description. Well, that's interesting. But you have so many other interests. What are your other interests and different modalities of working? You work with crystals. You've also done another book with tarot and aromatherapy. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, I love tarot and aromatherapy. That's actually, in a sense, it's what got me really involved in the tarot, because I was doing the esoteric healing, got the thing about the tarot, and then I was being woken up. At the time I was married to a very Catholic man, and I was raised Catholic too. And I was getting woken up in the middle of the night with these smells.
Oh.
And then I'd come up and I'd go, oh, and I thought I was dreaming, but it kept happening. Eventually I figured out, and I had somebody sitting on the end of my bed and all that sort of stuff. I've got the Italian Catholic sleeping next to me, which would have completely freaked him out. God love him. In the end, I ended up with these 22 essential oil blends. And it took me a while, but then I realised that there was one for each of the tarot cards, the major arcana tarot cards.
Mm.
So I had this product, and this is 25 years ago. Mm. So this is back when aromatherapy was very new. There was only one essential oil company functioning in Australia, and I was selling essential oils at markets, and I sort of built up this range of 34 oils. And back in those days, I called it Interlace Essentials, had this really cool logo with the chakras and all that, because I was into the healing. And, I realised I had this product eventually. I came across Mary Greer's work, which is beautiful. She's written a book called The Essence of Magic. And so I went off and I did 12 months of study on the tarot. But that's what made me go study it, is because I had these oil blends. And, they're actually designed for healing work.
Mm. So how did you, for example, let's pick a card. I'll just pick one, the Lover's card. I'm a Gemini.
Yes.
How would you ascertain what oils would be featured as part of the Lover's card, tarot oil?
Well, it was all channeled, Renee.
Right.
I didn't consciously figure this out. I was actually given this. That's what the guy and the smells were in the middle of the night.
Right. So are you clairaudient?
Yes.
Or clairsentient, I beg your pardon. Is it
I'm a bit
smell?
I'm a bit Claire.
Fascinating. Yes. That is brilliant. Because, as I said, I just said, I love herbs and I'm interested in that sort of thing as well. But to sort of consciously sit down and figure that out, that's what I thought. Maybe, you've sort of done that side of it as well, but it was all clearly through the divine.
Yeah, it definitely was. Like, it was after they were given that I then, the brain activated and I went, well, how come it's that? And so, for example, for you with the Lovers, you've got lavender, ginger and rose are the three essential oils. And it was interesting. I had to because remember, that's a long time ago. So getting essential oils back then was not like it is now. And I ended up having to buy them from growers. Like, I bought my lavender from Essential Oils Tasmania, direct from the farm back then.
Wow.
These days you can't do any of that. And weird and wonderful things happen, because this is back in the olden days, where there was actually an operator that you could ring. And no one will remember that probably. And so I actually, this one day, I was looking for this particular essential oil. I freaking didn't know how to find it. And I rang the operator. And I had this long conversation with the operator on the phone, who ended up doing this massive search for me and found me all these phone numbers of people, of companies, both in Australia and overseas. And so it was amazing. Just incredible. So anyway, so for you, for lavender, for example, the reason that's in is for balancing the masculine and feminine within, and it actually spiritualizes daily life and it helps deepen the meditative state. The ginger, that actually raises energy, magic, passion, sexual energy, all energy is brought up, works on the sacral center. It's to do with the element of fire, courage, confidence, power. And it works specifically on the emotional body. And as a Gemini, you'll know that, the greatest lessons happen in relationships. So, and of course, that's all hitting the emotional body. And the obvious one, it made sense, was rose.
Yeah, yeah. That's so beautiful, because we've just moved into our new house here out in regional Vic as well. And it was only over the last few weeks, just as spring sort of arrived, I surrounded the house with lavender plants, and I always have ginger in the fridge. And our next lot of planting we're going to do, which we can't do till winter next year, we're going to put roses around the house as well. They were like sort of my top 3 things. So that is wonderful. I'm so glad. I'm thinking, wow, this is uncanny.
But then again, it's not, because you know what you need.
So interesting, isn't it? Absolutely fascinating. We could talk for hours and hours. I've still got a few more questions for you, though.
Yeah, go for it.
You're holding masterclasses in 2022. You've got a website, tarot.net.au. Now, obviously, we're just over the big C. We just want it all to go away. But you are doing classes. I believe they're accessible to everybody because you are doing them online. And you're calling them, you've got a couple of courses on your website. You've got the introductory tarot course, and that sort of goes down into a few different things. But then you've also got another tab on the menu that says Masterclasses. And these are focusing on major arcana energies and teachings around those one particular cards. And they're starting off, for example, you've got the Temperance Healing from the Past on the 30th of January. Do you want to talk about the your masterclasses and what they embody and what we can expect?
Okay. So interestingly enough, the last 2 are not on the major arcana, because how I determine, I'm a tarot reader, how do I work out what I'm going to teach? I get the cards out, I shuffle, and I ask, okay, what's the class for the first new moon for the year? Boom. That's how I get what we're teaching.
Right. Okay.
So I've always, because I've worked, I live in a regional area, and until relatively recently, I worked full-time in my own practice, working as a hypnotherapist and a counsellor. So for many years, I had this story that I was running, that I had to keep the tarot and my paying work, like that other, the official out there person, separate. And I tried very hard to do that. And because I was under the impression that people would find that was problematic for them. But what has been the real problem has been that I have not integrated these 2 aspects of my work. And so I didn't, and I had a bit of a blockage around that. I think I had a fear about it, which is quite funny, because I used to drive a car around that had tarot cards, massive tarot cards, sign written all over it, which, so like, how paradoxical
I have
is
seen that photo. I will include that photo as part of the blog, I think, so people know. It's great.
I mean, it's just mental, isn't it? You drive that car and then you think, oh, no, I have to keep these 2 worlds separate. Like, it's quite funny.
There goes the woo-woo woman. There she goes. She's woo-woo.
Exactly. Funny story, actually, about, I'll just digress for a moment. I pulled up in the car park. Not near the car park, into a petrol station, and I'm filling up there, minding my own beeswax. I think I'd just done some groceries in the Tarot-mobile, and this young guy and his mate get out of their plumber's van, which is also sign written, and he makes a smart-ass comment to me, and I looked at him completely confused, because I forget, I used to forget that I had that on there. I was just living my life. And I looked at it, and then I looked at him and I said, are you a plumber? And he goes, yeah. I said, yeah, that's what you've got on your car. I said, mine? I'm a tarot reader. It's my business. And he looked all confused, because he thought he was going to like intimidate me or freak me out, or I'd be embarrassed. Yeah. But I just went boom straight back at him, and he like almost tucked his tail between his legs and whizzed off to pay for his petrol. It was so funny. But, yeah, amazing. I would highly recommend that all tarot readers sign write their cards. You get an amazing amount of business doing that. But anyway, so back to the Tarot Masterclasses. So after much performance and ridiculousness, during the past year, I've actually, stepped away from lots of things, played in the garden, just been with myself, spent time working on me. And suddenly one day I just went, what the heck have I been crapping on about? These things go perfectly together. And that's what the Tarot Masterclasses are about. It's really about using the tarot card to go deep with the self. So what's really going to happen is we'll come together in a group. Yes, there'll be a teaching on the card so that we are framing up the work. And then we're going to use that to explore our own inner selves. For example, the angel within, how we come through the fire and how we rebuild ourselves. So there'll be processes and meditation and discussion around that, so that the people who participate in that masterclass are actually going to experience the healing energy of being with temperance. So it's really like I don't quite know how to term this up for you, because it's still landing in the physical, I guess, at this moment. Because sometimes that happens. I get given, this is what you're going to do, this is what it's going to look like, and then the details come after. I'm still waiting for some of the details to come. But yeah, so does this make sense? Am I explaining it?
Yeah, no, you are. I think, all the archetypes do have essential, meanings and embody certain characteristics, and how we can apply them to our own lives is I think where you're going with this, and how we can utilize the energy of those archetypes and apply them to our everyday lives. And whether or not, you want to be, I love the one that you've written about the Hierophant, being your own guru. Like that's awesome. It actually reminds me of the Netflix Anthony Robbins. Have you seen that?
I love it. Love it.
Guru or something.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. It's sort of honing in on your own inner strength, honing in on your own, tapping into your own fortune, your own softness, your own,
exactly. That's
elements that
right.
These cards bring us.
That's true. Now, things like, because I've worked as a therapist for so long, I'm pretty used to the core problems, and that one on the Hierophant, be your own guru, that's about a core issue that comes up for people. We are always looking for the other to solve the problem. Yes. And I've done it myself. I'm sure you've done it too. We're all on this, this plane doing the same gig.
Looking for teachers.
Yes, we think it's out there. And just in the last few years, I made the same boo-boo again, wanting to find my tribe, wanting to find a place where I belong. Get the message, girlfriend. You do not fit in with the crowd. Create your own tribe. Be who you are. I had this. I studied Drew Yoga, which I love, and which appears in the tarot cards too, by the way, all the different asanas, the different poses, and I didn't fit in there. I was never quite right. I didn't have the right something or other, and it was a challenge. I found that I never was quite right for that. And then I went off and I studied meditation. I did this whole preparation, 3 months of vegan this and meditating bloody 4 times a day at ridiculous hours and studying lots of books. It was fantastic. And I go off to India, so that exactly 20 years after my first visitation there, and I'm at this, there with the guru, and I've never been a guru type of person, and, expecting some major teachings, and with no disrespect at all, I spent all this time doing all this work, lots of money to get there and not be at work and whatnot.
Mm.
And the lesson that I learned is, Karen, you must be your own guru. It's not out there. I didn't actually learn anything new.
Mm.
All that work, all that time, but it was a really important lesson.
It's the 20-year judgment turnaround, that 20 years between you did it last time and then you came back to do it again, like the judgment card, which is what Anne has taught always.
Yes.
I remember that stuck with me. And I think that's a classic example of that, absolutely. And I think it's hilarious how we tend to just, we're living in our own skin and yet we knew it all along. And then you sort of realise you just have to have that aha moment, that light bulb that finally clicks, and you think, I've got it. Like, I've been here the whole time. This is where what I've always known, and how I'm still the same person. I don't have to be another kind of person to be accepted or, feel confident or whatever it might be. But it's actually, at the end of the day, it's learning how to live in your own skin, and the more time that you spend with yourself, whether it be as the hermit or the Hierophant, I think you get to understand who you are and the bits you like, the bits you don't like about yourself. But the more you can learn about yourself, the more you can learn and live with others as well. Because as you said, I think a lot of people sort of tend to constantly live outward to find those answers, to look for those, the sense of belonging. Whereas if you can belong with yourself, like the monks do, and they live on, in isolation, that's where you're going to actually understand yourself so much more. And actually the answers are within yourself. The kingdom is within.
That's right. And that's where the tarot really is so incredibly valuable. And look, these masterclasses, I've had a fabulously messy life, and I continue to have one. And this is where the sharing comes from. It's not because I've got it right, it's because I've got it so damn wrong. And these masterclasses have actually come out of a new moon tarot circle that I used to do here in person in my regional area. And I live on one side of the river in New South Wales, and the venue I used was on the other side of the river in Victoria. So during this past 2-year period, that was off again, on again. So that's why I'm going online to just resolve all that stuff. And the beauty of these classes these gatherings, is that we can use things like, just the problems that you learn from and the wisdom that you gain out of it is great, but it's not enough. It's how do you anchor that in? And so it's things like, using NLP processes and all sorts of different tools and techniques to actually make that stuff stick. That's what comes from gathering and sharing in those spaces.
Well, I'll be enrolling, so you can expect me to see it for class. I'll be there.
Okay.
And I'll also leave links as part of the blog and where this gets posted eventually for people to access if they want to sign up. So that sounds really exciting and a great way to kick off 2022. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, thank you, Renee.
Since you've been a tarot reader and this author and a counsellor and so many years of experience in the realm, what's been your most enjoyable achievement?
I don't know about achievement. I think, look, when I first went to my tarot classes in Doncaster back in the day, I sat there absolutely enthralled at the group of people that I was sitting with. So I'm sitting in this classroom, and all these people, I just felt like I was such a baby. And I was a baby. I was a little chick from Mount Beauty, who, a little country town. I knew bugger all. And I was there, and all these people had travelled to Europe. They'd been into the Sistine Chapel. They'd done things. One guy had written a book. And I sat, and they talked about art and books they'd read. And I sat there, and I just felt like I was a little kid in the theatre, Oh, my God, this whole wide world. And I thought, one day I want to be like these people and know stuff. And I think my greatest achievement has been and is that I have sat in spaces where I am the dumbest person in the room, and that is an achievement that I want to continue to have, where I'm with people who know so much and who are opening doors and windows and turning pages for me, that it totally does it for me.
That is such a brilliant answer.
I love the experience. Like, I mean, the Guild, for example, has had some of the most amazing people speak. Like, James Wanless, for example, the creator of the Voyager deck. Rachel Pollack, she was here in Australia quite a few years ago now, but I was lucky enough to go on a tour to Central Australia where she's, and sat in Kings Canyon and did tarot readings with all these tarot people. Heard amazing people speak. I've been to the New York Tarot Festival. And, just being in the presence of people who really have explored far further. Yeah. Oh, I get excited at the thought of it.
Absolutely.
Let there be more, I say. Let there be more.
Well, that's what we're hoping for. And I think, this is our first podcast for Tarot Talk as part of the Guild, the Tarot Guild of Australia. And I'm so honoured that you've been the first person to interview for this fabulous installation, if you want to call it installment, this new latest installment as part of the offering. And you're right, part of the reason why I joined as well is to be surrounded by people and honoured to be in the presence of people like yourself and many of the other professional members that we have as part of the Guild. And it's our journey. It's our job to share these experiences and knowledge with others, and to learn from each other, and to welcome anybody and everybody who's interested in tarot, because the more we can grow our community, the longer we can sustain the legacy and keep learning until whenever, that's what it's all about. So sharing is caring.
Yeah.
And
absolutely. It's rich and deep. You join us, come and be part of this. It's such a transformative journey. I mean, I could not imagine ever have enjoying the amount of personal change and nourishment from any other tool than the tarot has given me. It's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Karen, I am going to wrap it up. I think this has been such a wonderful interview. Thank you so much for your time this morning. It's been a pleasure to listen to you, and I'm sure that our listeners out there are going to enjoy this so much. So thank you so much for your time and in joining me for the first Tarot Talk podcast.
Thank you, Renee.
If you'd like to be part of the Tarot Talk podcast on the Tarot Guild of Australia website, please get in touch with us. Our website is tarotguild.org.au. We'd love to hear from you. So until next month, stay safe and thanks for listening.